Morning and welcome to this session of our customer training webinar series. My name is Eric Bowling. I'm with IPC Technologies. And this session is about the best path to the cloud. So the cloud is something that's been around for a while. It's taken different shapes and forms through my 25 some years in the industry with just technology and seeing various definitions of what is and what is not the cloud. Today we're going to talk about primarily the cloud as a method for delivering on your communication strategy. There's lots of different ways to use the cloud. Many of our customers currently are cloud customers in some form or fashion. Maybe it's not their cloud infrastructure or their communication infrastructure that's in the cloud. Maybe they use a cloud-based CRM application like Salesforce or Microsoft Dynamics, or maybe they're a Office 365 user where they have cloud infrastructure supporting their email and directory and applications. So lots of different solutions and services that are essentially consumable in the cloud. We're going to talk primarily again around unified communications, but also touch on some other areas where IPC is seeing some significant movement with cloud technologies. So move this over here. So when it comes to unified communications, there are essentially four sort of different models with which to consume your communications. And by communications, I'm talking telephones, voicemail, presence, chat, SMS, contact center applications, customer experience applications, anything that has to do with communicating in and out of your business, regardless of the channel, whether it's email or voice or what have you, social media perhaps. And so traditionally, most people here have the customer premise equipment, right? You have infrastructure in your facility, you have it in your data centers, you have it in your multi-site areas where you have physical equipment that you own. It has a support warranty contract that is paid annually to provide replacements and software assurance, software subscription and support on that infrastructure. You own the licensing. But generally, it's an own, right? You buy the car. You own the car, and so you are responsible for the maintenance and the care, the uptick of that equipment. And then you move to several different types of cloud offerings. You have a public cloud, a hybrid cloud, and a private cloud. So a public cloud is generally over the top. What that means is that it is over the top of maybe your existing internet connection. And generally speaking, public cloud offerings are sort of what you refer to as a multi-tenant environment. So multi-tenant, think apartments, right? There's one building, but there's multiple people that are owning a little piece of their world, a little bit piece of that business. They each own that, but they share resources of the building. You know, the power comes in and it distributes to all the people in it. The plumbing, the water, the heating, the AC is all run by a centralized system that each of the people, the members of the apartment complex, share the responsibility and the payment and the service of those things that are generally performed by a landlord. That's generally what we're speaking about when we talk about public cloud. Public cloud is, it is secure, but it is a shared type model. Let's drop down to the bottom, which is private cloud. Private cloud is you actually own your own instance. Maybe not own it, but you subscribe and rent your own infrastructure. Maybe it's your own virtualized infrastructure. It's your own database of systems. Think of that like renting a house versus renting an apartment. It's your own, right? You have control of everything. You're not sharing trunking and power and resources and CPU and disk space and all those things. They are dedicated to your instance. Generally, private cloud is delivered over private circuits as well, whether those are SD-WAN, virtual private circuits over good internet connections, or something like a point-to-point or MPLS or some sort of direct connection between your facility and the private cloud service provider. But again, the general difference between public and private: public is shared resources, private is dedicated resources. Think apartments renting versus renting your own home. And then a hybrid cloud is a mix of potentially all of those. Generally, hybrid cloud means I have some footprint in the cloud and some footprint on premises. And so that's where we get a little bit of the best of both worlds. I don't want to move all of my applications and services into the cloud. I want to keep some of it local because I have skill sets and the ability to manage that infrastructure internally. But maybe if there's a new application that I don't want to build a server and virtualization and software and buy licenses and maintenance contracts, I can simply subscribe to a service that delivers to my home or to my place of business. So those are generally the various types of infrastructures that we have. You have your premise-based, your public cloud, your private cloud, and then the hybrid, which is generally a mix between premise and some form of public or some form of private cloud. Generally speaking, again, we're speaking in high generalities, but the public cloud offerings are most commonly found in the smaller businesses. So by smaller, we mean 50 or less. Generally, those are single site as the primary, but there may be some remote workers. By no stretch of the means is it limited to that. There are public cloud customers who have thousands of users on a public cloud offering, so it still is available to large. But generally speaking, at IPC, we see this to be true, that more the small to medium are the ones who are adopting this technology and moving to this technology. Let's call it 500 or less, or even 1,000 or less, are more likely to move to a public cloud than a private cloud offering. Excuse me. And then here in the middle, you have the hybrid approach, where it just kind of falls in between these medium and large, although I do have some small that are hybrid. A lot of it just depends on the unique requirements. And what we'll do is we'll look at some actual use cases of people who have made the decision to move from their premise-based to a cloud-based solution and some of the reasons that they decided to do that. So, but generally speaking, the UCaaS public cloud here, or the private or on-site, are generally reserved for your medium to really large organizations. So this is sub 50. This is, call it 1,000 or less in the medium, and then over 1,000 for the large. So that's all sounds really good, but I get this question a lot. You customers ask IPC this, but Eric, should I move to the cloud? Should my business, should my law office, my bank, my manufacturing, should I move to the cloud? And my first response is what's on the screen there. I really don't know. But let's ask a question. Do you mow your own lawn? Okay, that sounds like a very strange question to ask somebody when we're talking about cloud infrastructure. But let me walk through that. So this is a picture of my son mowing the yard this past summer, right? We've got a nice tractor. He's my labor. The Bowlings at the Bowling household, we mow our own yard. Okay, but what does that really mean? Okay, well, let's walk through what it takes to mow your own yard. Okay, so we have a shed. We did have to buy a shed that was big enough to drive the lawnmower into, so that we can keep it secure, we can keep it dry, it's well protected. I've got a bunch of other stuff in there as well, but it causes me to have a shed. Customers who have and manage their own telecommunications systems, they also own a shed. It's called a data center. Okay, so you have to have your own data facility in which to house the tools and the communication required to deliver communications to your customers. Okay, this is all the stuff that's required for me to have a green lawn in the back end if I'm going to do it myself. And what I'm going to do is draw analogies to, okay, so you got to have a data center if you're going to own your own infrastructure, just like I need a shed because I mow my own yard. Okay, what else is next? Well, okay, so we need to add a lawnmower. So there's my servers, my network, my PoE infrastructure, any physical thing that I need to mow my own yard, right? The grass is 6 inches tall. I need to cut it down to 4 inches tall, which is usually what we do. We try to keep it 4 to 5 inches, nice and tall and green. But that requires this tool. And that is a tool that I purchase and I maintain. Okay, so I also have to provide power to my data center. I have to provide patches and updates, right? Changing the oil in my lawnmower type of thing. But I am responsible for that. I'm responsible for the upkeep. Maybe I have to sharpen the blades on the lawnmower. Maybe it's not cutting even. I'm a little bit of a do-it-yourselfer, so I don't mind dropping the platform off, flipping it over, taking off the blades. My neighbor behind me has a nice grinder, so he'll let me go back there and I'll sharpen the blades real good and put them back on, and I'm good. But I'm okay doing that because I have that skill set in house. I have that ability. I have the tools to do that, and it's something that I have available to me in my shed. But it is something that I must perform. So there's the upkeep, the maintenance of my infrastructure. And guess who has to bag the grass? Well, that's me. So when when I mow the yard, it's not just cutting the yard. There's some other general maintenance items and upkeep, which means I also have to own a rake and some other tools. So I do have some infrastructure that I have to buy in order to support. Maybe this is a network monitoring tool set that you have to purchase because you need to monitor and upkeep the health of your communication infrastructure. So these are just the other ancillary items that need to be purchased and owned and understood and managed, the tools utilized to ensure that the lawn gets cut, the grass is green, right? Network monitoring is a great example of that for your data center, your servers, your communications platforms. Okay, those are just other items that are sometimes required to ensure a good experience. And there's the fall. So I also rake leaves in the fall. So lots of maintenance associated with this. It's year round. Grass, mowing, leaves. Now, this is one piece that I do outsource. So this is my security. This is my security arm here of my data center, my weed killer, my turf lawn food, right? This is, I do hire a service, a guy who comes out and sprays 4 times a year because he knows what to spray. I don't have the talent. I don't have the in-house ability to know, okay, what is this weed called? I got a guy who takes care of that for me. So in some fashions, I'm a little bit of a hybrid model in my lawn mowing service. I own my own shed. I own my own, or my data center. I own my own lawnmower / servers communication infrastructure. I do my own maintenance, right? Patches and updates. I do bag my own grass and have my own tools to be able to do that. However, I do outsource the security of my lawn, right? The security, I don't want any weeds into it. They will come in and do damage. So I've got somebody to do that for me. That is a subscription service that I pay for my yard. Maybe you have an outsourced security provider who does pen testing for you a couple times, or just someone who watches your firewalls and makes sure your antivirus is up to speed and your patches are managed and those types of things. So this is Eric Bowling, and we mow our own yard, but this is what has to happen in order for that to take place. Remember, I'm answering the question, should I move to the cloud? Well, tell me, do you mow your own yard? Because right now, I also, this is another, you've already seen this picture, but I do insource some of the labor. Okay, so I do have some insourcing, right? I have 4 children. Luke is my youngest, so he's the lucky one who, luckily, he likes to do this. So he he is my in-house labor to do the mowing of it. Now, my next door neighbor got a nice house, green lush lawn. My next door neighbor does not have all of this equipment. What does he have? He has people. He's got a team. He outsources his lawn service to accomplish the same thing. We both have green grass about 4 or 5 inches tall. It's rich, it's thick, it's all this. But my neighbor does not own a shed. He does not own a lawnmower. I do not see him raking his leaves and bagging his grass and running out of gas in the middle of lawn mowing, having to run to the gas store to get another, to fill up the tank to put some more gas in because you ran out before you were done. He's got this team. He outsources it to someone else who has all this equipment. They are responsible for maintaining this equipment, and he simply pays a little bit a month to for someone else to take care of it. Now, one is not right and one is not wrong. One is just a different mode of thinking about whether or not I want to invest in the infrastructure, the people, the equipment, the data centers, the other applications to ensure good communication. Do I have the time to do those things? Do I have the skill set to do those things internally? Or my business is a law firm, a bank, manufacturing, retail, a city government, right? I have customers that I need to service that I don't really need to be in the business of mowing a yard. And so a lot of this is just decisions around senior management on how do we want to get a green lawn. We all need a green lawn, right? Everybody wants a green lawn. But how are we going to go about doing that? Are we going to build our infrastructure, or are we just going to hire someone to take care of it for us and subscribe to a service and just pay for it? Because the nice thing about my next door neighbor is if my lawnmower breaks, guess what? My grass is going to keep growing. It's going to need mowing until I fix my lawnmower. When my next door neighbor, when one of the lawnmowers breaks on his team's lawnmower, they've got multiples. They have redundancy already built in. It's not his problem. He just says, yeah, I don't care if your lawnmower's broken. That's your job to fix it. I need you to cut my yard. Okay, so it's you're paying for a lot of the back end, the labor, the maintenance, all the stuff that goes and happens in the back end that you don't have to provide for yourself. And the end result is a nice, lush green lawn. Okay. So hopefully through that analogy, what you've come out of that with is it's not a technology decision, right? I don't mow my own grass because the grass is greener if I do, and it's healthier if I do. It's because I'm a do-it-yourselfer by heart, and I already have this equipment. I have some in-house labor, my children, to help me with this. Now, when they all graduate and go to college, ask me the question, Eric, do you still mow your own lawn? I may have a different answer because my labor forces have changed, right? So those are some of the criteria that you want to walk through when considering whether or not you want to migrate to the cloud. And when you decide to migrate to the cloud, what I've done is we do this all the time for our customers. We walk them through, okay, should I do this? Should I not? So if you are considering a migration to the cloud, here's some of the key things that you're going to want to know well ahead of time in order to ensure a smooth migration. Now, let me just take a sidebar here. IPC does offer a consultative experience, a consultative engagement with our customers to help facilitate what you see on all of these components. If you've never had to look at a phone bill before, and the thought of looking at a large corporate phone bill makes you nervous, we do this all day, every day. We have people who can come in and help to facilitate and navigate these steps for you. We're essentially a project manager for you with whatever cloud provider you choose to help you through this process of understanding, okay, what does porting a number mean? What does a billing telephone number mean? Why do port requests get rejected? What features and user groups do I have? What is my existing call flow? Do I want to change it? What's the new call flow going to look like? What about training on the new applications, and who will be responsible for simple moves, adds, and changes? Will that be a cloud portal, or will I submit? All those questions that you have when you move to that, IPC has something we call Connect First, which is just a service engagement where we walk alongside our customers and walk them through these various components for a cloud migration. I'm going to take a quick pause here just to see if there are any questions. Okay, no questions yet. So, components to a cloud migration. We have phone numbers. Do you know what phone numbers you're using? There are DID blocks. There are 800 numbers that are main numbers. There are fax numbers. A lot of times the fax numbers get people in trouble because they don't have good documentation and historical records of where all these numbers go to. And the larger your organization, the more complex this is. 800 numbers. Will these numbers be included? Will they be excluded from the cloud migration? What do I do with faxes? Those types of things. So that's a big piece of it. The big piece of it is fully understanding your telecommunications billing. Are you under contract with your existing carrier for another 2 years? Well, if you're under contract, you really normally can't get out of those contracts. So that could determine the time frame with which you would potentially want to migrate to the cloud. So if you have another year on the contract, maybe you start planning in 6 months so that when the contract is up, you go month to month until you migrate to a cloud infrastructure, because we take the cloud infrastructure generally for communications takes those numbers, takes those services and those circuits to the cloud provider. Users. This sounds pretty easy, but it's not always so easy, because when you're given the opportunity to review your user community and the things that each user needs, there's lots of options to consider. There's different licensing levels. They need instant messaging. Are they going to have mobility applications? This gets a little bit into the features. Who gets the features? Who needs call conferencing and web sharing? And is this everybody, or is this just a subset of people in the middle of, or actually just finishing up a migration where a smaller subset of the larger user community wanted some of the more advanced features, but they were the owners and the partners and the firm and all those things, and they didn't want everybody in their law firm to have all the features. So who are the users? What are the features they get and or do not get in this migration? And that is just taking time and speaking with someone like IPC who has the experience and the knowledge to help you navigate, well, here are the pros and cons of moving from this method to another method. I had another customer that we're working on a hybrid cloud approach to. The cloud provider said, do you want this or this? And she said, he said, do you want A or B? And she said, well, we want B. And I said, now let's be careful. Let's define what B means, because B means that you will also have X, Y, and Z. And she came back very quickly, says, oh, okay, in that case, we want A. Thank you. That's why we hire IPCs, because they help us navigate what is the recourse, what is the downside of some of these decisions we made. And we know those just based on experience, right? It's just experience talking. And so, at the surface level, the provider was saying, do you want A or B, and not necessarily helping the customer decide which was better for them. And she said B, and I came back and said, well, if you do B, you're also going to have to deal with X, Y, and Z, and I don't think you want to do that. And she said, you are right. We need to do A. and we need to change a little bit about how we're going about doing this. So that's just one example of the value proposition of having someone like IPC in our Connect First offering to be able to kind of act as a consultant. We are consulting for the customer. We are your advocate. We are helping you navigate through something that we do every day that maybe you don't, and we can speak a little bit different language and bridge that gap, be the translator, if you will. Another piece is the call flow, right? What happens when the phone rings? Does it go to this person? Does it ring over here? How many times does it ring? Does it have an auto attendant? Do we have an IVR? Do we send the call here, there, this, or that? So we help define and confirm call flows, even messaging in call flows. What do we want the auto attendant to say? If you're going to replace your old phone system with a new one, you might want to refresh how you greet your customers. We have partnerships with people that do voice talent and on-hold marketing type of messaging so that we can help you facilitate, hey, if you want to give your customers a better experience, we can help with that. And that's all wrapped into the call flow item there. Porting a number. Porting a number means moving it from your existing carrier to the new provider. Just ownership of the number. Who owns 1-800-555-1212 or 804 or 757 or 434 or wherever your area code is? Who owns that number simply gets moved from one carrier to another. Porting is probably the most, I would say, error-ridden step in the process. You have a concept called the losing carrier, right? The carrier who is losing the business, and you're transferring it to a new provider. They have to agree to give up the number. Now, legally they have to, but they make you jump through a lot of hoops. And submitting that information very accurately without with all your T's crossed and I's dotted, very clearly identifying and having planned which numbers are porting and which are not, is just something, again, we do every day, and is one of those things that you want to be careful of when you're moving to the cloud, that you have a very clear picture on porting numbers. We've had customers port numbers and miss a whole group of numbers, and all of a sudden the new phones aren't ringing with the old numbers, and so there was emergency porting because they had sort of missed on this. They had missed on the first item, the phone numbers that were included. This was a customer that elected to not go with our consultative, and they said, "No, we got this. This should be easy." And I think they sort of had to scramble there for almost a week while we were helping them chase down what numbers were and how to get them ported and moved over. There's training. Anytime you move to a new technology, you got training issues, and so part of that Connect First is end user training. Most cloud providers do not provide end user training on site. Many of them do not even provide remote leader-led training, even on webinars. So we offer that as well. We help our customers either on-site, classroom-style training, as well as remote leader-led, give them access to all the self-paced videos online, and help them navigate what kind of training program do we want when we migrate to the cloud. Because generally there's going to be a different software look and feel to how it's maybe a different phone on the desk, depending on what you're moving from. And then administration, we do some training so that help customers be self-sufficient in how they administer their cloud infrastructure, a web portal to go in, new users, changing passwords, those kind of things, or they can just let the cloud provider do that for them. Okay, so those are some components of the cloud migration. Some of the advanced considerations, so generally speaking, the other components, these are things that everybody has to anybody moving from a premise to a cloud infrastructure, whether it's communications or contact center or even your servers and your compute and all those things, right? Those are other cloud strategies and cloud migration opportunities that IPC assists our customers with as well. Again, we're talking primarily about unified communications today, but there are many other types of applications that can be migrated to the cloud. But for some other advanced considerations are contact center. How are my customers? What does my contact center look like? And contact center is kind of it's a strange word. A lot of people say, oh, we don't have a contact center. But if you have customers that you communicate with them, you have a contact center. It just may not be formalized. It may be something that's a little bit less informal, where you're not real-time reporting on calls and drops and abandon rates and those kind of things. But every business, well, let me put it this way, every business who has customers, which is every business, has a contact center. You communicate with them somehow, whether it's voice or email, or they walk in your front door. You have that customer experience, that business to customer relationship that is required. And so making sure that that is a clean and clear process for migrating to a new technology is very critical. I've got some use cases that we'll touch on here in a minute. So we've got contact center, other advanced applications like unified communications, presence, click to dial, instant messaging, video calling, whether or not you're interfacing with your Salesforce or Microsoft Dynamics or Zendesk, your CRM application. AI is a big thing that we're doing a lot of now, where we have some cloud-based analytic tools that allow us to do some artificial intelligence and some machine learning capabilities with our with how we're analyzing calls and customer behaviors, things like sentiment analysis. This is pretty cool. Sentiment analysis is being able to detect the sentiment of your customer. Are they happy? Are they indifferent? Are they sad? And so there are some tools out there that actually analyze the spoken word and can pick up on nuances to detect someone who's angry, someone who's elevating their voice, speaking louder and using words like this. And so there are ways to detect that with some of the advanced technology. And you don't have to build the data center and buy the servers and all those things like in the lawn mowing service, right? You don't have to build all those things. You just hire a team who already built that, and you subscribe to a lot of these analytic capabilities. So we're seeing more and more of our customers move to those advanced applications because they're not expensive and big to build and hard to get to anymore. You just subscribe to them, and it's really clean and really easy to get those advanced capabilities. Mobility is another advanced consideration. How are we going to handle mobility? And mobility could be the road warrior, or it could be the work at home person. We have a group of people who work out of the homes. A cloud strategy makes that very easy to accomplish and to grow your work from home strategy, whether that's with a soft phone running on a PC or an actual phone sitting at a desk, or a soft phone on on a smartphone. So some of the advanced considerations that we help our customers with are, what are you going to do about mobility? Because when you move to a cloud infrastructure, mobility becomes very easy to consume, because most of the time you get these applications. You get the capability to do these things. It's how you're going to use them in your organization that IPC will help you walk through. Do you have multiple sites? What is the connectivity? Do you have internet? Do you have private connections? Do you want to move away from your expensive MPLS circuits and utilize local higher bandwidth but cheaper internet bandwidth? Redundancy. Last one here, trust. Trust is a big one when you are considering a cloud migration strategy. I trust people that I have a history with. Now, generally, I trust you from day one unless you prove me wrong. But in a business, you're going to be looking for partners that have demonstrated their ability to deliver. You're going to trust them. You're going to trust and verify. You're going to ask for references. Hey, do they do a good job? You're going to read online reviews. You're going to look at, hey, how many outages has this cloud provider had over the last 12 months? Because all of them have outages. That's just part of the business, right? Nobody's perfect. And just making sure that you have aligned yourself with someone who has demonstrated that they can be found trustworthy. Because that's, if I outsource my lawn care service, I take great pride in my lawn, and I believe that I can do it better than anybody else. So if I'm to outsource that to somebody, I want to see I want to see the other lawns that they mow. Are they green? Are they clean? Are they rich and thick? And what do the homeowners say about? Are they timely? Do they leave trash behind? What are the things they do in their lawn service? I'm going to want to trust and verify along the way that it's going to be a good experience. And we can help you do those some of that analysis as well. And you'll want to do it with IPC. Can I trust IPC to consult with me and help me navigate this process? And after almost 40 years of being in business, we would say, yes, you can trust us, because if you couldn't, we wouldn't have been around that long. Okay, so let's do a couple quick case studies here. Looking at the clock, we're about on time here. It's 11:36. So public cloud. So this was a single site law firm. They did have one or two remote workers and some other geographies. So, but primarily you had, under 50 users at a single site, and their reason for consideration was they had a system that was out of support, was beginning to be hard to find parts for. So it's kind of like the old car running down the road. It's going to leave you on the side of the road one day. It's coming. You just don't want to be somewhere where you got to be somewhere important when it happens. And so you go ahead and buy a new car. Okay, so the case study for this law office was generally they just had old technology in their facility and they needed a new phone system. So what we moved them to was a multi-instance public cloud unified communication as a service, that's UCaaS product. We did it over the top over their existing internet connection. Before we did that, we did assess. We ran some tests about the performance of their internet connection and found it to be reliable, low latency, no jitter and packet loss. So we wanted to ensure that their existing internet connection was going to have a good experience for them, and we did that beforehand with some of the tools that we have to do that. And then it took a couple months to implement. So we walked through our process. We looked at their phone bills. We identified all their users. We identified the features that each user would have. We scheduled call flow meetings. We made sure that we had the greetings identified. We helped them with the porting so that the information was submitted correctly. We conducted several days of on-site training for their end users to come in and see the new phones and learn the new software and get comfortable. And then we cut them over, and they've just, didn't miss a beat. One day their old phones stopped ringing and their new phones started ringing. And so that is just one example of, just kind of a simple, this is the very common in our industry migration for folks. Now, if they had not done anything, or if they had decided to purchase a system, they could have simply kept going along with their old system and hoped and prayed that it didn't leave them stranded without any communications if it died one day. They could have bought a new system. They could have said, hey, we want to own it. We don't trust anybody, so we want to own our own system. We want to buy it and just, keep it for many, many, many years. One of the nice things about this one here is the difference in price between what they were paying for their PRI and the monthly reoccurring fee for the cloud was only a difference of a couple $100. And so for the only difference in price, so I'll make up the numbers, but they're about right. $1,000 a month for a cloud-based communication system. They were paying right under $800 for their PRI service and their other lines that they had in the building that went away. So they got a brand new phone system for the net difference of $200 a month because they got to cancel their old PRI and get all new brand new phone system. Because remember, the PRI service, you don't need that in cloud infrastructure. That's hosted by the cloud provider. They provide dial tone. So that's one of the things that, they were able to get a brand new system that is maintained by someone else, that has brand new software, infinitely more features. They didn't have unified communications. They didn't have presence. They didn't have click to dial. They didn't have the ability to SMS people from their desktop. They didn't have web conferencing. That's another expense that we haven't totally flushed out with them. But they don't have to go to Cisco WebEx anymore. The cloud provider has its own conference bridge solution, web screen sharing, video calling, all the things they didn't have before, they now have access to. Brand new phones that they're renting. Okay, they didn't have to buy the phones. They're just renting the phones, which means if one breaks, you just get another one. And only for a couple $100 in net difference per month, which is pretty amazing. So that was one example of a case study here. This other case study was a private cloud. So this was one of our customers who was on a public cloud and decided that they needed some better reliability and to ensure some audit findings around HIPAA compliance. So this is a sort of a healthcare organization that has a 24/7 operation. They have agents taking calls around the clock, 365 days a year. They do, since they are in the medical arena, the government ensures that they're HIPAA compliant, the Health Information Portability Act, something, I can't remember what the second A stands for, but it's securing patient data that our government requires our health organizations to adhere to. That was a requirement of anybody that delivered their service, so they needed to have one that was HIPAA compliant. And there are public HIPAA compliant ones as well, but private was easier to accomplish. A couple hundred users, and so the solution was they didn't rent an apartment; they rented a house. Okay, their own private infrastructure, single instance private cloud solution. They had contact center, IVR applications, redundant architecture in the cloud, fully customizable. They can if excuse me, if they wanted changes done, they could make the changes internally. Right, when you rent an apartment, you sort of get what you get. You can't really request any customizations to your apartment. Now you can paint it and decorate it the way you want, but the structure is the structure. Within a house, you can actually move walls and customize those things as well. So it gives a little bit more flexibility. Now it is pricier than, renting a home is pricier than renting an apartment, but you have the flexibility and the freedom to customize that. Dedicated internet or dedicated connectivity with SD-WAN solutions to secure those with an internet backup solution. So redundancy are all around, fully customizable. And this was one of the case studies of one of our private cloud customers. Okay, this one here is another one that we are, actually this one is we are in the middle of this one as we're speaking now. This is a hybrid cloud approach. So this one's a little different. So their environment is they have over 20 locations around the country. And each location, I would say maybe half of them are IPC customers, and there are another half of those 20 locations that are not IPC customers. Someone else, they have a different brand PBX running in their facility, and but they have a project to consolidate their customer experience over all of those locations. So before, each site was left to their own on how they were going to deliver their customer experience, but the owner of the whole organization said, listen, we need consistency across all locations, regardless of whether it's a Mitel phone or an Avaya phone or a Cisco phone or a Toshiba or an NEC or whatever phone it is. We need to have a consistent customer experience across all of those. And so what our solution for them was CCaaS, or Contact Center as a Service. So this is not UCaaS. It is CCaaS. UCaaS is like phones and dial tone and those types of things. CCaaS is the contact center as a service that sits over top of all of those facilities. It doesn't matter what kind of phone you have on your desk. It is a true over-the-top contact center experience. We also allowed them to bring their own carrier. So even though it's a cloud offering, some cloud providers allow you to bring your own carriers. Not all do, but some do. And so what that means is that they had negotiated good rates with their carrier, and they didn't want to pay the cloud carrier. So the cloud carrier the cloud provider allowed them to bring their own carrier for dial tone and the negotiated rates that they had, which saved them some money. So that was a neat sort of additional hybrid approach where, hey, they got to go to the cloud, but they got to keep the relationship with their existing carrier that they had worked so hard to maintain and establish. So there is a deep Salesforce integration associated with this as well. So there's some of the advanced considerations that we walk them through. So when one of their customers calls in, it's got a fully integrated with their Salesforce records and their back office applications, and they know exactly who's calling and the history of when they've called before. They also have some really neat AI capabilities. The cloud contact center solution that they selected, excuse me, has some really neat analytics tools built in to where they're doing sentiment analysis, and they're looking at how many times does someone say cancel my account in the contact center, and they're analyzing that data real time to be able to determine what's really occurring within their organization at any moment in time. So some neat advanced applications, and they didn't have to build any of that. They didn't have to swap out one piece of hardware. They just said, listen, we have a corporate initiative to better our customer experience across a disparate, different technology, different service organizations all across the country, 20 plus locations. We're going to simplify this with a single contact center experience for all of our customers. Really is a neat project to work on. It's going to be finished here early in the first quarter, and you'll hopefully be seeing a nice use case or a case study white paper on our website about this customer one day when we go ahead and get this finished. But it's very exciting. And also some other advanced things about the omni-channel customer experience. They're doing voice only, but what they've elected, they're going to be adding some additional channels as well with ways that people can get service and support from them, other non-standard from email or voice, like social media integrations, Facebook and LinkedIn and WhatsApp, and chatting and texting and those types of things on their websites. So some neat capabilities that they are going to implement once they get past phase one. So that one is a hybrid because we didn't replace their PBX. They still own their phones and their systems and everything internally. It's just we came over top with a application of the customer experience management platform, Contact Center as a Service. It brought in some great applications with artificial intelligence and capabilities and the like. Okay. So those are a couple of case studies. The other thing I just sort of wanted to remind everyone is we've talked today, and we appreciate everybody's attendance on this fine Christmas Eve day. Hopefully we're going to be wrapping up here early here at IPC and sending everybody home to go spend some good time with their family. We hope that you guys do as well. Wanted to just point out that we also have relationships with other cloud migration partners like AWS and Google Cloud and Zuora and Microsoft Azure, and to deliver not just communications in the cloud, but compute, storage, hardware, bandwidth, right? These are all services that you need to run your business, right? These are the data centers, they're the sheds or the lawnmowers or the gas and the oil changes and everything that many of our customers do internally, but they're migrating some of these to the cloud, not all. There's, it's not an all or nothing decision that you need to make. You can do portions of it as it makes sense for your business. So we have some key partnerships where we can extend offerings outside of unified communications into other areas as well, and would love to talk with you about how do I make the decision to migrate my storage or my server farm or my infrastructure from my data center to a cloud-based provider. So those are some things that we would love to chat with our customers about. Let's see here. There is one question talks about how do I price a migration? I don't know if I can, let's see, it says, how do I price a migration from my existing phone system to a cloud-based system? So you can reach out to IPC Technologies. If you are an existing customer, you should know your account manager. If not, you can reach out to me, Eric Bowling. I also have one of my business partners on with us as well, who's been listening intently, Mr. Stephen Banks, who's also available, and we'll get you in touch with a good account manager to sort of walk through that, what it might look like, and do some cost analysis, comparisons around what you're doing today versus what it could be in the future. So you just need to reach out to us, and we can help you navigate, and we can do multiple providers as well. We're not just one. We can look at multiple areas for comparison's sake. So thank you for that question, and we'll be happy to walk through a pricing exercise with you. Let's see here. I believe we have come to the end. There's my Q&A. We already addressed that one question. It's 11:52, so we are right in line with what our goals are for this webinar session. Wanted to thank everyone for their time today. Hopefully, there was a little bit of clarity brought to, do I stay with what I'm doing? Do I move to the cloud? I love the analogy of the lawn service because it's real to everybody. Everybody at some point in their life, well, maybe not everybody. I did meet a woman in New York one time that's never owned grass or a car. So my analogies fall short on her. She's always been a subway girl and lived in the pavement and concrete of the Big Apple. But most of us at some point have had some sort of lawn care experience, and so it means something that we can kind of get our teeth around. And we all have neighbors that don't mow their own yard. They got a service. Sometimes I am jealous when I see that truck pull up to my next door neighbor's house and 4 guys pile out, and 30 minutes later the lawn is immaculate and there's not a blade of grass left on it and all the leaves are raked, and then he comes home and starts playing football with his son while I'm in the backyard mowing my yard. I got to be honest with you, sometimes I'm jealous of that. But it's just a decision that I've made, and it's a decision that I'm equipped to handle one way versus the other. Maybe he doesn't like changing oil, or maybe doesn't even know how to, and so he doesn't have that skill set. He's got other skill sets, and he wants to hire someone else to do it. That's just where the analogy comes into play. Do you want to own it yourself, or do you just want to outsource it to someone else? And cost-wise, depending on what you're trying to accomplish, it's just an exercise that you go through to navigate how do I want to spend my money, investing in new technology or just as an operational service that somebody else takes care of. So, and that is all we have for today. There's no penalty for ending a meeting early, so it's 11:54. Want to again thank everyone for their time, and I hope everyone has a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. And we look forward to our next sessions. We'll be kicking off a whole new round of sessions. Check out our website here soon for the 2020 version of our customer training webinar series. We hope that you are finding these valuable and helpful, and just appreciate our customers and our partners. Thanks so much.